So anyways, the season change, time passes, and yeah, I kind of feel like every season affects our energy in different ways, and different seasons are more inviting to focus more in some kind of energy levels or activities and the like. So we are entering fall. It's very beautiful here. And just a quick catch up for those of you who someday you would like to come and visit. Rimrock is a really beautiful, beautiful town, and it's growing a lot energy wise. A lot of people are starting to visiting, more international audience comes, more events are being hosted here. You may have heard about the Dragon's Head land that Geshe and some friends, Xiaopin and Stanley, they recently bought. Beautiful, beautiful land. I think Geshe next year is going to start using it even more for more events. So far, DSEU, the university, sessions are happening there. Some people, like some teachers from all over, are starting to move either here or nearby in Sedona. So it's just a feeling that it's growing. This place is growing and the community is growing as well, or being more present. So just giving you some sharing of what's going on here. Coming up very soon, people are getting ready for Japan event on the 5 houses. Really, really recommend people to go if they can, or watch online. Geshe is getting us ready for the new Diamond Way series. He's going to start teaching 2026 and starting 2027, because there is a need of some preparation, how to say, classes. And at first I hear there were gonna be 4, then at some point I hear maybe 5. And because Geshe is planning to have a surgery, a kidney transplant, very likely on spring 2006. He needs to slow down a little bit after that. So it's possible that these preparations extend a little longer. We'll see, but soon, you know. And something he likes to say, he said this last time in Phoenix event. He say that people think he's getting them ready for Diamond Way teachings, but he's already giving them Diamond Way teachings during these preparation classes, right? So if you can, really try to catch up for the Kyoto event. It's really super soon. It's like pretty much in about a month from now, 4 weeks or so. So, okay. I think Adam will be here soon. Yesterday we talked. He said he was getting some materials ready. On my side, we paused for 2 weeks. One of those was intentional because we had the Phoenix event, and the other one I totally forgot. It was Friday, and I just didn't show up. But I hope you rest. Let me see if all the translators are set up. One more. Lena, hello, thank you. Russia. Good. Okay. So, quick context. We have been going through the Randlook section of the book, Emptiness Meditations. No, sorry, not Emptiness Meditation. The Key to Emptiness, The Door to Emptiness. It's the book that Adam Andrade translated with Geshe Michael. And the book starts like with many different debates that start teaching kids usually It's one of the first books that kids study in the Geshe universities. And you start learning important information with following these debates. And also you start learning how debate works, and you start developing your mind on how to think clearly. And then after a few debates, let's say something along 12 debates, the book goes into a section called in Tibetan or West Chinese. Now, sometimes we refer to Tibetan as West Chinese, now that Tibet is one of the territories of China these days. So in Tibetan, it's called Rang Luk, that basically means our own system. So what this is like a section of information, very clear information that is just conveying key points that this school of thought believes. The Pramana school, the logic school, or this clear thinking system pretty much is developed with the belief systems of school number 2. Like traditionally in Buddhism, there are 4 schools that they build upon each other. Many things are shared, so they are not completely different. And many things, they all agree. But there are some things that some schools may argue are incomplete in previous schools. So it's not that they necessarily are different, but they say like, yes, what you say is correct, but also this other thing. And they start adding more. Sometimes it's actually, how to say, a denial of a previous idea. Sometimes there are ideas that conflict, but many times they share also beliefs. And saying that, we are on school number 2 mostly, but when Adam and I start sharing this information, Geshe always encourages us to keep adding on top of it ideas that come from school number 4, Madhyamika Prasangika. These two, school number 2 and school number 4, are the main 2 sources that we are using to learn Pramana, logic, or clear thinking, also called. Madhyamika Prasangika is like a super famous school nowadays in the world, really, and in general in Buddhist philosophy, because it's the school of Arya Nagarjuna, which in a way, one day I was talking with Ben Kramer. It was very interesting what he was saying. He was saying that much you study the first 4 schools, and how school number 4, which is Madhyamika, has 2 parts, which is lower middle way and higher middle way. Now, maybe you are very familiar, but the Geshe course spends 12 years studying lower middle way. Lower middle way gives you so much information about details of how the whole path works. Like, I think, as far as I understand, lower middle way is very good at explaining steps on the path. And for example, the bodhisattva bhumis, the bodhisattva level, the realizations along the path, it's very detailed on that side. And it's also great on logic school, but then you reach to a point where you need to keep going higher, and you go to higher middle way. And Ben Kramer was saying, like, really, he was saying that the job of higher middle way is to deny everything that you have learned so far. And at the same time, but he was saying something along the lines that it doesn't give you any proposal, let's say, it just makes you realize that everything you have learned so far, it's totally impossible to be like that if you think of it as existing in its own way. Kind of supporting this idea that maybe you have seen this phrase that Ariana Gardner kind of said, like, if you think that I disagree with you, you are totally wrong. But if you think that I agree with you, you're also totally wrong. It's like Madhyamika Prasangika is just, his job is deny whatever you may agree with or disagree with. If you disagree, you're wrong. If you agree, you're wrong. And it shows you why you're wrong. And it mostly has to do with the way you are agreeing or the way you are disagreeing. And this process of thought leads you to this beautiful, I'll say, marriage. Many times it's called marriage of karma and emptiness, that Geshe used to teach us, the two sides of the same coin, or this quote in Tsongkapa's book about karma is emptiness, emptiness is karma. So it's very important to time keep adding this fourth school into all that we are learning in school number 2. And yesterday I was having a nice talk with my friend Pachi. And then I was telling him about something we have been studying here in the course, and I'm going to share the materials in a moment. How it's very interesting that right now we reach the run look section, and the run look section starts talking about how we divide existence. Remember, at the very first beginnings of these sessions, we start like, okay, everything that exists can be divided. First, the first category, how it's divided, is changing or unchanging things. Inside the changing things, we have physical things, mental things, things that are not physical or mental. And like that, we start like, how to say, opening the flow chart of existence. When we reach to the run look section, the very first things that the run look starts sharing is form. The very first thing we're going to start dividing and expanding on is form. And it's the same, like starts creating categories, because then later, when we have these categories very clear, it's going to be easy for us to talk about them, to learn to use them, to categorize them. This eventually is going to lead us to understand how reality works. It's going to lead us later to mental pictures. Mental pictures leads us later to pretty much, I would say, both understanding dependent origination and at the same time understanding emptiness. And by doing this also, we will get very clear about Chichedrak, this super famous topic that helps us to realize how this process of dependent origination happens and arises. But anyways, this flow chart starts with this form. We have outer form and inner form. So to me, going through this process of checking this book has been giving me a lot of new information that I didn't have before, and just to be surprised on how the different ways of dividing categories, right? Because from outer form first, it starts telling you like, okay, things that are objects that are visible, the door sense of the, let's say, visible objects, the door sense of smellable objects, the door sense of hearable objects, and like that. And then there's categories and its categories, and keeps going. What am I saying all this? We're just to keep emphasizing, we're in school number 2. At some point, we start talking about smells, right? And second school tells you, okay, smells can be divided into natural smells and artificial or compounded smells. And then you're okay, what's next? They give you the definitions of both of each, as far as I remember. And then it gives you natural smells can be divided into two. Natural smells that are pleasant, natural smells that are unpleasant. And you're like, oh, okay, great. But why is that interesting? And has to do with this idea again. I think Geshe shared during the courses of Arya Nagarjuna, famous Tibetan saying that says like, if you don't look closer, everything seems good. But if you start going deeper and deeper and deeper, you start finding that something there is weird and pretty much is impossible to be. Now the text gives you even examples, and they say, okay, a natural smell that is pleasant, and an example is saffron. And a natural smell that it's unpleasant, the example is some plant called asafoetida or something like that, like a medicine plant that supposedly smells bad. And then you are like, oh, okay, makes sense, great, let's keep going, right? But then school number 4 comes and say like, oh, really? So you're telling me that saffron smells good and asafoetida smells bad? Yes. Okay, so what about a person who's allergic to saffron? For them, do you think saffron smells good or smells bad? Well, maybe for them it smells bad. Oh, wow. Okay, so maybe the good smell or the bad smell is not necessarily intrinsically on the substance, right? Somehow it got there, but depending on the person who experienced the object. Somehow the person load the object with the pleasant or unpleasant quality, and now the person is forced to experience it in that way for now, because later it could change. If it's empty of those qualities being there by themselves, it also will imply that it could change. So these are actually great news, because by this fact, we open up the door for our life to be personalized and designed perfectly as we would love it to be. And here is how school number 4 offers like a solution, a path, or a door to paradise, pretty much. Geshe has a book that he called the Eastern Path to Heaven. And it's very cool book. This book talks about how the teachings of Jesus influence East and then lately West, but how these teachings on emptiness are present as well in different forms in Christianity. But anyways, the reason I mention is because at the end is pretty much for us that grew up in Christian context, for example, it's pretty much like what we are trying to achieve. Just say with other words, we want to take ourselves, our minds, our hearts to a better place that we could think of it as being in paradise. And many times I hear this idea like paradise is not a place that you reach by, I don't know, taking a spaceship and driving 430 million years light to the west or east, right? They say paradise is in the same place that you are, it could be paradise. Here and now, it could be paradise. If you have different seats to load your reality, then you could be in paradise here and there. And I don't know, Jesus talks about some idea called reaching God's realm on earth. I'm translating from Spanish. Llegar al reino de Dios en la tierra. So, yeah, that's the good news about school number 4, that it gives you a path. But in order to be able to use this path, it's super helpful to understand as well school number 2. And that's what we are doing here, loading it, seasoning it with school number 4. Okay, long introduction, but I'm gonna now share with you some of the materials. And just so you know as well, finally, lately I gave some time to update all the YouTube channel. So if people want to watch any of the sessions, lately what we do is in each one of the sessions, we go through one of the door senses. So if you're curious about one particular part, you can now access it there. It's in YouTube. We have the Telegram chat group where the links are available and everything. And now I start sharing my screen. Right now we're using mostly two materials, the flowcharts, visual flowcharts, and the text. So let me go first to the text. Okay. And then, yes, if people want to participate, remember we were having this activity that people sometimes introduce themselves. That can help us to get to know more about each other, interests, likes or dislikes. And it helps to build community. I think it's cool. So I keep encouraging people, if sometimes you want to talk a little bit, or if you have questions, just raise your hand. You want to do comments or complaints, you can do it either in the chat or just raise your hand. Okay, now sharing screen. We are on verse 115. I hope this is the, how say, close enough so you can see the letters well. If not, let me know. Okay, but just so you know, we are here 115. The run look section started. These are my notes. Remember, we did that exercise too. Okay, our own position on physical form 7. Run look, Rankilukla 73. So we are almost like 75, something like that. No, we are almost like 40 verses into the run look. After we did some of these debates, we didn't finish the debates. And I think later, actually soon, we should go back to the debates, and I bet you'll see the difference. Now that we have studied the run look, the debates, I think, are going to make much more sense. Just showing you what we've been doing so far. And okay, let's go. 115. Okay, so last session we did, could you please close the view? What means close the view? Making it bigger? Let me see if I can do that. A ver, así? Yes, maybe more. Too much? That's okay. Okay, we went through the different, okay, I have an idea. I'm gonna find this. Okay. Share. Okay. Just so you know, in the run look, we start with form, which is the synonym of matter. It gives us the division, outer form, inner form. The outer form divides in door sense of visible form, sound, smell, taste, tangibles. This very flow chart, the very first one here, I tried to put together the divisions of visible form, just, excuse me, shapes and colors. Colors are primary, secondary. We talked about each one of them. How the secondary to me was a new thing, understanding that can be considered more like visual effects, like when you use the, I don't know, designers apps, for example, or you work in the computer and then you want to do an effect like blurry or shiny or something like that, they can be understand like that. Primary colors, but remember in the debates we learn as well that there is something called a set of the four primary colors, but that doesn't mean that there are not more primary colors that are not members of the set called the four primary colors. And again, remember that it can be helpful to learn to use this very technical and I almost call it like stiff language in this process of debating, because every single word you choose or you add or you don't use can have a difference in the debate. We'll little by little keep learning about it. Okay, so now, just so you know, right now in the verse 115 here, boop, we already did door of sense of visible form, sound, smell. Now we're gonna do taste. And we did it last class, but I'm gonna do quickly on it and then we move into tangibles. Okay. So there is a definition of the door of sense of taste because that object which is detected by the consciousness of the tongue is a definition. And remember, this is written in debate form. So it's super important to once you make a statement, you have to give a reason why you're saying that. The text could have said like, the definition of the door of sense of taste is that object which is detected by the consciousness of the tongue. That's it, right? But we are practicing and the book is getting us trained to have this mind that, you see, I hope little by little, it's almost like a game. You will learn to use this language. Like, it sounds super technical and repetitive, but there is a reason for that. And then later we also have to learn to go beyond it. And I think it's on the lines that Geshe say that people who really, really understand emptiness, they usually are very brief, very, how to say, very attractive in the language they use. He say they use a very sexy, accessible language. And he has said past, that's one of the reasons like Arya Nagarjuna's book, most famous book, is just called Wisdom. You see, versus these long titles that could be like a dialectical discussion on the minor and major works of the details of interdependence and emptiness, which in some cases I think could be helpful, but just so you start getting the feeling of the two different styles that at the end they're gonna mix and give us both great results. Maybe when we transcend this technical thing, we can just call things wisdom or something. Okay. Taste may be divided into 6 types. I'm gonna show you this part of the text. It's like a page or two, and then I'll show you the flow chart. Okay. Taste may be divided into 6 types: sweet and sour, bitter and astringent, spicy and salty. Now, it's also very helpful when we study these books. If you know a little Tibetan, it can give you a lot of value. One of the reasons I say this right now is because of this. Check it out. Here it says into 6 types. And here you find 6. Druk, 6, yote, R. Ro means taste. Che, in this case, I think is categories. So categories of taste are 6. Well, okay. But why it separates them in pairs, if you notice that. Ngarwa, tang means and. Kyurwa. And then kawa, tang, kawa. Sawa, tang, len, sawa. Druk, yopecher. Druk again, 6. All these are the 6. So although it's telling you a 6, you can tell by the Tibetan that also in the English as well, but you can, how say, check if there is like a match, let's say. They are divided in pairs, and that could eventually be important. So, okay, we have 6 ways to dividing taste, basically 3 pairs or 3 groups of 2. Okay, we can posit examples of things which are sweet for the taste of brown sugar and the taste of milk are 2 such examples. Great. We can posit examples of things which are sour for the taste of purple leaf plum and the taste of yogurt are 2 such examples. We can posit an example of something which is bitter for the taste of gentian root is 1 such example. We can posit an example of something which is astringent for the taste of black myrobalan is 1 such example. We can posit an example of something which is spicy for the taste of the tripinate horseradish tree is just such an example. We can posit examples of things which are salty for the taste of soda salt and of Mongol salt are examples. Okay, great, right? Now let's watch the flowchart. Just one moment. Okay, taste. All right. So what do we just read? That we have something called the door of sense of taste. And the definition of the door of sense of taste is that object which is detected by the consciousness of the tongue. Remember, we are in the context of outer form. So right now it's almost like we are investigating the objects that trigger certain consciousnesses. So whatever object creates in our reality this experience of taste will be considered an object that belongs or one of the members of the group called objects that belong to the door of sense of taste. Let's put it that way. Okay. Now, we say it can be divided into 6 things: sweet, sour, bitter, astringent, spicy, and salty. We talked about that, how they come in pairs. So somehow it seems that there is a relationship or a connection between sweet and sour, bitter and astringent, and spicy and salty. Just so you know, it could be important in some in the future. Okay, so examples of a sweet taste, it will be brown sugar and milk. And then, as we were talking about, like, this is school number 2, because in school number 2, sorry, in school number 4, they will start asking questions. We will get there in a moment. But this is another very important thing we talked before. Is brown sugar sweet? And again, if we just work in conventions, yes, you can say, sure, brown sugar is sweet. But again, if we try to develop this debate mind, very logical, rational mind, you will have to say, no, brown sugar is not sweet. What is sweet is the taste of brown sugar. And again, that may sound simple, but it could be super determinative. It could be very important if you are in a debate. It's like, because I told you before, there is a debate, I think it's debate number 12, that they start arguing, and this helps you to start understanding mental pictures. They start arguing something on the lines like there is no such thing as a white horse, that the horse is not white, because what is white is the color that the hair of the horse has. So if anything, the hair is white. But they even take it further and say that it's not even the hair what is white, is the color of the hair what is white. When we get more clarity on mental pictures, this called Dunchi, or like yeah, probably we can say Dunchi or Chitzen and Rangsen. These will make sense and become helpful to understand what's the difference between horse and the color of the horse and things like that, because horse is called, belongs to a category of things called like denmanduchi, or like sometimes also translated as a person. And that's why sometimes they say, like, for example, Adam is not its body, it's not its mind, it's not the addition of all of those, but it's neither the absence of all of those. So it's something else. Anyways, brown sugar here, the idea is that you get this maybe idea in your mind that consider this way of creating structures when brown sugar is not sweet, but the taste of brown sugar is sweet. Yeah, because I wrote here, like, some people could say, like, no, brown sugar is not sweet, brown sugar is brown, no? Because you're saying it's brown. So anyways, important to add taste of. And the text does the same. That's why I wanted to show you. Check it out. These are like little things that we start noticing when we get more into the text. Things that are salty, it says the taste of soda salt. Well, I guess I got a little further, but here, for example, things that are astringent is the taste of black mirobalan. Things that are spicy is the taste of tripitane. For some reason, the text thinks it's important to add the taste. There's a reason for that. It's not only that things that are astringent is black mirobalan, but it's the taste of black mirobalan. Let's keep moving. Okay, now again, examples of sour things: taste of purple leaf, taste of yogurt. For bitter, taste of gentian root. For astringent, taste of black mirobalan. Spicy, taste of tripitane horseradish tree. And salty, taste of soda salt and of Mongol salt. And last session, when we reviewed this, we went into this idea again that it's very interesting that for every, well, I guess for whom you may ask, for me, it's very interesting that all the examples you see, they include this idea with the taste of tripitane, which things that are salty, the taste of soda salt, everything here, all the examples tell you the taste of, but here, then they change the strategy and say the taste of soda salt and of Mongol salt. And you may think like, it's nothing, right? It's like, it's just a way to write. But now remember how Geshe has been encouraging us to be always have this mind. Actually, I think it's a mind that's very healthy for Diamond Way. And Geshe often in Lamb Dreams, he has shared with us that when we study the Wheel of Life, the blind man in Sutra, in the open teachings, the blind man represents this person who doesn't understand karma and emptiness. We believe as blind man, we believe that things are coming at us. We don't understand that we are blind, and we don't understand that things happen because of a reason that has to do with how we treat others. But now they say there is a special secret version of the wheel of life, which I'm very, very interested to learn. But he has shared with us step number 1 in the secret wheel of life. The blind man is that person who believes that things are ordinary and they are not extraordinary. It's like, yeah, whatever. There is no special reason why these great saints from India, Nepal, Tibet, blah, 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 choose this particular order of topics. There is no reason. It's just random. They were bored, they were tired. They just decided. I had a cool story regarding that. I remember I was in one of the airports. I think we were going to India. I was going with Geshe in 2015. We were at the airport and Geshe was working in his translations. And I don't remember exactly, but I think he was either translating Master Dharmakirti or Master Chandrakirti. I don't remember exactly. He was writing on the computer and he shows me, look, Hasso, come, look at this. And I'm like, what? Look what he wrote. Da, 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 da. And he said, I think there is a mistake in here. Look, it's supposed to be this way, not this way. And he fixed the text. And he looked at me and he say, now, when things like this happen, what we are supposed to think is that the author of this book, this very holy person, because his great love and omniscience or sight into the future, they saw that we were going to find this text and we were going to realize that there was a mistake. They put the mistake on purpose there for giving us the opportunity and the good seeds of fixing the problem, and by that creating super out of virtue. So they are helping us by doing that. And I was like, oh wow, that's awesome. And then he looks at me and he say, and that's what usual thing every time you find a mistake in my text. Okay, amazing, great. So this is a kind of healthy mind that helps us to start tapping into this more elevated, I don't know how to call it, more elevated, special world reality, or you could argue mandala maybe. By developing this way of thinking, I think we create the seeds to actually later on being able to be in a magical reality, a magical. So then you see things like this in the text and don't disregard them easily. Maybe there's times for whatever practical reasons, but it's a great tool to have this like, why this time the taste of soda salt? And then they just decided not to add anymore. From the whole examples, only one time they don't add the taste, but they add off. And to me, it's a sign of how important it is, because they are telling you, you have to talk about the taste of things. It's, to me, it's like another clue, like a hidden sign that how important it is. Check it out here. I don't know if you can, no, share screen. So it's the taste of all of these things, which is the taste of soda salt. And to me, it's almost like saying, don't forget to also add the taste of, because here at least they are careful enough to add the off. Okay, great. We survived the door of sense of taste. Now we're gonna move on onto the door of sense of touch. And now we're gonna do a different approach. Let's go first to this flowchart and then we read the text. The door of sense of touch, okay. And you by now are used to it. What can you expect next? The definition of it. Now I'm gonna check if there are any Okay, things in the chat. Ah, okay. Thank God I checked the chat. Apparently, we need another Russian translator, but I don't know who. Okay, Ina. Thanks. One sec. Okay, take a break, drink water, do whatever you need. We're almost finished, but let me add an interpreter. Okay, Ina should be on. Go back to this again here. Ah, perfect. Okay, the door of sense of touch, the definition, that object which is detected by the consciousness of the body. Now, the door of sense of touch can be divided into two again, touchable things which are elements and touchable things which are products of the elements. The elements of earth. Okay, we're gonna get here then. Four elements traditionally, sometimes some traditions add five, and even some others, like the Chinese tradition, I think they have like six because they add like metal and wood. I don't know if someone is familiar with the Chinese system, but they have more. And the most traditional, like basic form, is four. You may know them: earth, water, fire, and wind. Traditionally, they are divided into from how say the one that is more gross to the one that is more subtle. Earth, is like very touchable, let's say. Then water, a little more fluid. Fire, slightly less, and then wind is the more subtle. And this may be relevant and important because for those of you familiar again with the steps on the path, there is a time when Geshe taught us about the dissolution of the elements, which happens to be a super advanced practice later on in Diamond Way as well. Super important, like one of the most important practices, and a process that also is said to happen at the moment of death. Now, in order to understand more about this practice, we need to understand more about the elements and what they mean and what they represent. But pretty much, Geshe keeps sharing with us that they represent forces of nature, like principles of nature. And we're about to go into that. And then when we die, like these qualities or properties inside of stars vanishing. So what's earth? And Geshe say, like, don't think the ancient wise people from old times will think that, I don't know how to say, inside of this cup of water there are particles of dust or soil or anything like that. It's more that earth represents this force of nature, which its definition happens to be hard and rigid. So when physical matter has this quality of being hard and rigid, it can be said that it has that earth quality. And some objects have more than others. So I don't know. Okay, I have this. Check it out. This may be a good example. Like I have a piece of toilet paper and I have I don't know, a tube, lip balm tube. So if I touch this and I do this and I do this, right now, because I use my sense of touch, I can tell that this one has more earth element on it than this one. Why? Because this possesses more quality of hard and rigid than this other object. So this has more earth. And now this can have also implications for medicine, like Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, other forms of of medicine, where I don't know, some doctor could tell you like, oh, your elements are out of balance and you need to find either ways or activities or foods that increase one element or over the other. Maybe some person who is like very weak, for example, or is going through who knows, let's say osteoporosis, when the bones start losing calcium, for example. Some approach may say like, you are losing earth element, you need to increase earth element. And different traditions have like different foods that help you to increase the earth element, or physical activities, different ways to do yoga practices or things like that, that will increase and help to balance these elements. The next one will be water. And the definition of water is that which is wet and flowing. And it also gives you a feeling and understanding of this quality when we say again an object has. A good example to give this for me, okay, wait a sec, I have the example. I hope now you can see I have a plant here. And then you grab this leaf, and then you can almost tell like the way it feels and the temperature it has. I can tell that this plant has more water element than this napkin. This feels more dry. And although both are super soft, earth, probably they have kind of the same amount, maybe. But water, I can tell that this has more water just by touching it. It's almost like moisture, actually. And this is dry, although still very soft. Now, I don't know, probably you can medicine find your skin is dry or wet or something. Now fire, hot and burning, same thing. Examples, look, I have this cup and I have this thing, and just by touching them, I can tell this has more fire because it's warmer. This feels more cooling. Wind, light and moving. Yeah, probably again, this has more air than wind, more wind than this thing. I shake it and this feels very solid, and this very light and moving. Okay, great. And now, touchable things which are products of the element is the other category, and there are 7 kinds. And for these, again, we divided into pairs, groups of 2, which is smoothness and roughness, heaviness and lightness, coldness and thirst, and hunger. Interesting that all these 7 belong to objects that trigger the door of sense of touch, objects that are detected by the consciousness of the body. So yeah, the body can detect if it's something's very smooth or rough, like textures, if it's heavy, if it's light, if you're cold, thirst, hunger, okay. And now this is exciting because remember I was telling you we start the Ranlook section by going deep into all these other form. So finally, after this is session number 20, we have been doing this for 20 weeks now. Finally, we reach the next step, which is we done this, done. And there, as I told you, recordings and videos you can watch if you want to review any of these. Done. Now it's time to go to inner form. And that's exactly where the text is taking us next. Boop, boop. So we have 5 more minutes to, or no, I know we have 15 more minutes. So if people have any questions, we can also address those. What I think is to just give it a read for good luck to the section of the door sense of touch. And then I'll show you how the text starts going into inner form. But I want to see if anybody wants to say anything. Also, remember, if you guys have ideas or things that you want us to talk about, you can tell us, and then we develop content around that topic. I'm going to, before we read the text, just share a little bit something that happened the other day. We were at Picture Cafe. Who was there? I think Chloe. You may know Chloe. She was doing some work with course number 4, which is really great for Pramana as well. And then Team Lowenhub was there and Sibon was there. And then Chloe had a question and had to do with, it was a homework question that says something on the lines of, how can you tell that the realizations on the path are truth? And it was specifically referring to, I think that, I don't remember, but the 3 kinds of knowledge or something like that. Like the knowledge of an Arya, the knowledge of an Arhat, and the knowledge of Buddha, which is omniscience, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but basically the question was, how can we tell if the realizations on the path are truth? And what kind of perceptions do we need to use? So, we have studied in the past as well that there are mostly, I would say, 3 different kinds of pramanas. Pramana means valid perception, and sometimes it's also translated as correct perception. And pretty much the difference, again, to give you some second school dish, but seasoning it with fourth school dish, you may have here sometimes this difference between valid perception and correct perception, where Geshe shares the story of one time he had to do a business decision and he need to fulfill some orders to different clients. He had some questions like, I don't know exactly how to fulfill this order. And he tried to call his boss, but the boss couldn't pick up the phone or whatever. So he was like, okay, I think this is the way. I see the numbers here. I see the numbers there. I see the address of the different customers here. So I'm going to do this. And then Geshe solves the problem. Boom, boom, boom. Sends the orders. Great. And then his boss later in the afternoon comes and he tells, hey, did you send the orders? He said, yes, I did. Okay, let me see, because I hear there was a problem. And then he looks at the boss, looks at the orders, and he said, like, oh no, you make it a mistake. You did something wrong. It was not supposed to be like that. You were supposed to send the same, all the order, the both of the orders to the same address, because you don't know this, but it's actually the 2 companies are owned by the same people. Something in those lines, right? So he was like, the boss was kind of upset, and he was telling Geshe like, no, you did a mistake again. You messed up. You didn't do this right. And Geshe was arguing that actually I did the order in a good way, because at the time, with the information that I had, I did the best that I could. This is the story that Geshe uses to make the difference between a valid decision versus a correct decision. And he usually says valid is when, at the moment, using the information that you have, you made a valid decision. It was the right decision based on the information and the context that you had. But maybe it was incomplete or maybe it was wrong. So you missed the correct decision. So the difference between valid and correct. But in this context, school number 2 will tell you like a valid perception is whenever you, I don't know, can function in the world. Let's put it that way. If I ask you, like, can you pass me the black phone? And you know which one is it, and you are not going to pass me the red one, you're going to pass me the black one. And that's great. That's a valid perception. But then the fourth school may argue that a correct perception only happens when you understand the object perfectly. And when you understand that that black phone that I asked you to pass me is actually a phone that's coming out from your seats and it's empty of having any self-nature. So it's like a little taste of what could be the difference between valid perception and correct perception. Correct perception will involve understanding perfectly the nature of the object, and valid is like, okay, fine, come on, we can see it's black. I don't understand why it's black, but it appears black to me, so it's valid. Okay, fine, it works. We all will agree, or most of us. And Adam is here. I want to say hello, Adam. Welcome.
Hey guys, I the time change hit. So my alarm went off at 6:30 and yeah, so I apologize. Um
No, it's good that you came. I'm glad to see you. And yeah, last week I was the one who just forgot that it was Friday, so I already apologize as well.
hmm,
And today we just finished looking at the door sense of, what was it? Now I forgot. Before taste, oh yeah, taste and touchable things. And we were just sharing some stories about something that happened recently. And then yeah, just encouraging people if they want to add something, or we still have like 15 minutes, so maybe let me just tell them what happened, and then if you want to share anything, Adam, or what you've
yeah.
been working on, or what
Mhm.
would you like to address soon. So anyways, the question arises that how can we prove what kind of valid perception or pramana we can use to establish if the paths of the goal are real or true. And then this idea came in the answer key. I'm talking about course number 4. The answer key says like, oh, the kind of perceptions we need to use are both. We need indirect perception and direct perception. We need them both. We need to have these two things. But the problem came because before we read the answer key, we were all trying to figure it out. Usually the kind of pramanas can be divided in 3, which is I don't know, direct, yes, using your senses, indirect, using your deduction or logic, and I thought the third one will be like authoritative, like Loom, somebody that you really trust tells you the answer, so you just trust and go for it, and that can be sometimes established as valid. But then we start getting confused because it's like, what about convention? Sometimes the classical example Geshe uses is that in United States, when a car is very bad, they call it a lemon instead of a very lame car or a bad car. They call it's just a lemon. So you could talk about a lemon and everybody in the room understanding that what you're actually talking is a very lousy, very bad car. And it can be considered a valid perception that comes through convention. So now the argument started when we start trying to decide if everything that we mentioned can be actually only divided into these two, direct or indirect. I thought, let's say there were 4 ways, and each one of them should require its own category. But apparently, the proposal was like, what if actually there's only 2, in the sense of direct perceptions that you can have with your senses and probably with your mind as well, that we have talked in the past, called the direct yogic perception. And the other category will be indirect perception. And maybe inside the indirect perception, then is when we have the three categories, which is deduction, lung, and well, convention. I don't know, convention maybe could fit more into the direct. But the reason I brought this is like, at least to me, I say like, and I already studied course number 4, but I don't know, maybe it's like sometimes we go back to study things and we see them with new eyes. It's like,
Hmm.
this question never arose to me. And discussing with friends and teams start participating on it, and Chloe and Sivon, and we were all trying to figure it out where to categorize that. So yeah, it's great just to have the time to, in a way, I'm encouraging you to keep asking questions, keep putting in the chat if you wanna talk about it, or for the future we can prepare materials about it, discuss and participate. It's a great way to learn, like sharing with friends. Pretty much is a way that I think one of the functions that debating with your friends in the Geshe universities, one of the goals that this activity of debating accomplishes, this feedback and forth and back, and what about this and what about that, even if it sounds crazy, just go for it and maybe you find like a jewel there.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So
They
yeah,
also,
yeah, if you want to take maybe the last 10 minutes or so, just sharing
um,
where you're at and what's new.
yeah. So, you also wanted to point out that in my second text, we've been looking at the different types of direct perception. And one of those would be, well, you have direct perception, right? You have indirect perceptions. Then hold on, you left out one. You
Which
left
one?
out one. So what happens? What do you directly perceive your own thoughts? Do you directly perceive your own mind?
Is that a question?
Yeah.
If I directly, I guess, yeah, no, you directly perceive your own thoughts.
Hmm. Yeah. So that would be another one. Something in the West we call self-perception or apperception.
Ah,
Um,
but that considered to be a direct perception, beyond the senses, more like in the mind.
well, the so excuse me, those are four types of accurate perceptions, right? Um, and it's highly debated. Um, I believe the first school and the fourth school believe that apperception is accurate. Self-perception, awareness of your own thoughts. Highest middle way, excuse me, mind only, and the second school don't believe in apperception or awareness of your own thoughts. Um, it's an interesting discussion though, because um, if your thoughts aren't accurate, then how could you say your realizations about something are either accurate or inaccurate?
Like
Like if
how can you trust your own mind if your mind
exactly.
is broken?
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. And so anything you really come like let's say you hear the pen, right? And then you hear Geshe Michael teach the pen and it strikes your mind in some way. And I know for me, I got goosebumps, you know? And I kind of you can sense the truth in it, right? Um yeah. So what if how would we categorize that? You know? Um yeah, trying not to bog us down too much. Just because we could kind of get lost in all those details. And it really would take a little bit more time to talk about how the different schools view each one of the four types of accurate perceptions. Um, so yeah, just a minute from where I am. Um, we've been yeah, so I've been preparing for the next class that I have this month. And while I was doing so, I found a really beautiful text that was written by a it was written by one of the greatest scholars to come out of Tibet. His name was Jamyang Shepa, and he actually wrote a text that connected the second school with the highest middle way, which is really cool because Juan may understand, he's nodding his head, but this was the whole intention when we started these classes. When Geshe Michael asked us to teach in Japan, he wanted us to teach emptiness using second school material. And I found a whole text that's like 100 pages that just does that. That's like the only thing it does. So I've been putting in some time and a little legwork trying to study that so that, and it's pretty interesting too, because when I kind of logged in here, I heard Juan talking about accurate perceptions and yeah, Juan has Rangre. I just saw it in the chat there. Yeah. Um, so that's what I'm hoping to bring to you guys too. I think from week to week, what we may be able to do, because lately I've just been commenting on what Juan is teaching. But I think it could be cool to use some of this text to provide commentary, specifically about how the second school's views, or the second school's kind of um, the second school's opinion, right? And then how does that directly lead to higher middle way, right? Or what are the tools that you need in order to step into properly studying higher middle way? Because that's kind of what the the Dura text and the collected topics. That's the purpose. It's like giving you a toolbox. And so you have to know how to use a screwdriver. You have to know how to use a hammer, a wrench. And it's all these different types of ways about thinking about reality. And you have to have those before you really, really start to study highest middle way. So I was pretty excited when I found this text. I like texted a few people who I knew they weren't gonna care at all, but I like had to tell somebody. So yeah. So
And
I'm
is this
looking,
text, how you say, available for sharing, like, or is it
no,
something you gotta buy, or is this?
well, I could give it's in the database.
Ah, okay. But it's
Yeah.
only in Tibetan or it's already
hmm
in English?
hmm
Right now only in Tibetan. I was thinking we could share it in the chat, but my Tibetan is not like that good to read the
Yeah.
text.
Well, we could go through it too, though. I
That'll be
mean,
cool. Yeah,
I
for
could
sure.
take out one section at a time.
Yeah, that'll be great.
And then we could kind of go through it. But yeah, so that's where I've been the past like pretty
Mhm.
much the past week. Um, yeah, and sorry once again. I don't know what's been going on this month. This past month has been a little weird. I had to go to the hospital one day. Um, yeah, and then I logged in last week and nobody was here. And I
Yeah,
was
yeah, that was
yeah,
my fault.
yeah,
And I was thinking about the class this week and all that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then just that day we had visits at home,
yeah.
and I forgot it was Friday. I just wake up like
Mhm.
super fresh and like, oh, okay. I
And
forgot.
then what else was it?
We had the Phoenix event and we paused.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And then this morning, I had to readjust my alarm. I have an alarm set to go off every Friday, and I never changed it. So, uh, yeah, once again, I apologize. And yeah, I think next week it'll be fun to jump into some of this more technical stuff too.
Sure, sure, sure. Sounds good. And yeah, thank you, translators. Thank
Mhm.
you so much. I hope I was kind of trying to go not so rush, but it's not my strength.
Yeah.
Speak slowly. I keep working on it.
Mhm.
So thank you so much. And I told the group Adam that
Mhm.
now the YouTube channel is updated. I just spent some time a few days ago,
Yeah.
and I'll just try to catch up to, even like if I can just now, as soon as the recordings are there, I
Mhm.
upload them so they don't pile up later. So you can watch if you want or share with other people. And yeah, I guess thank you so much again. See you next week.
All right, guys. Yeah. Have a good week. See ya.
Thank you, translators and everybody for helping the project. And yeah, remember in the chat you can write if you want to hear about something in particular or questions and stuff. See you soon. Thank you so much. See you next time.